Welcome to the Fran Snyder Podcast, where I talk to artists and music fans to explore how music connects us through great stories and experiences. Brought to you by the Listening Room Network. Today's guest, J.Robert. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Great. I'm feeling great. It's wonderful to live down here in Southwest Florida.
Nice. It's great to see you again. Last time I saw you, you were playing fiddle with John McEuen down in Sarasota with one of our house concert hosts down there. Actually, more of a listening room. Paul and Fran Schatz down there. We're hosting you and John. It was a great show. We got to chat just briefly, but I really haven't seen you since. And that was what, 2 years ago?
It was last year, actually.
Was it?
Well, let me think. It was just before the COVID hit, so.
Yeah. So a little over a year ago for sure. So it's been a fascinating year for a lot of people. And one of the things I always like to cover is silver linings in terms of, pandemic hits us as bad news and world-changing affair. But what's been amazing is the resilience of people, the resilience of artists, and how they've adapted. And I see that you've adapted by really leaning into creating a studio that's multifunctional and ready to go with live streaming and all that. So tell me, I guess, what was the immediate impact of for you in terms of playing and when COVID hit, and how quickly were you able to pivot, or how much did you pivot? How much of a change has this been for you in the past year?
It's been a forced retirement.
Yeah.
By that, I mean a lot of my corporate gigs went out the window, and festivals, they got washed out, and private parties. But the silver lining is, number one, I learned the banjo.
All right.
What can I say? John was an influence on that, but I do a lot of film music, and a lot of times it needs banjo, and John's up there. I've had him in the studio quite a bit, but he's up there and I'm down here, so I just started plucking on it, and it's been a blast. Besides that, I've written a couple songs, and I've set the studio up for a live stream, which I haven't pulled the trigger on yet. It's I've experimented. I've done a couple shows for Child's Path, which are for people under 3 feet tall, and I've done a couple songs for Change. But otherwise, you're my first exercise in the studio
okay.
for this.
Sounds good. Well, I see you got the green curtains. You already got the green screen. I've seen a few of your videos on your website where you really have fun with that, adding some tropical settings to
it's so fun. Yeah, I can create my own environment just by invite myself out into the Everglades to sing.
Yeah, nice. So how did you wind up in Marco Island? You were born in Bradenton.
There we go.
Have you lived in other parts of the country, or have you always been in Florida?
Good question. When I was a little boy, my father traveled quite a bit. As a matter of fact, my father started off as a farmer out in Immokalee and decided to go to school, University of Tampa, back in 1956. I was 6 years old, and I went with him from there. He became a nuclear engineer. We traveled Oklahoma for university. Idaho is where we wound up in the AEC, the Atomic Energy Commission. So,
wow.
And then he worked with Oak Ridge and a few others. But my music, all those experiences has added up to what I do nowadays.
Nice. And so how long have you have you been playing with John McEuen? How did you meet John? And...
Pete Gallagher from the Florida folk people. He's introduced me to so many people over the years. And I met John McEuen through Jim Billy. I was playing with Jim Billy at the time, and John was there for some productions. Let me think. I'm trying to put together.
And Jim Billy was the chief of the Seminole tribe down there.
Seminole man, yes.
Right.
And he so many wild stories about being on stage with him. I remember. May I?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. That's why we're here.
I've got a million stories, and I really would love to share them. Like the time James called me up, I call him James, says, "Hey, Jay, meet me at the airport." This is an airport out in the swamps. It's a private, I call it the Seminole Air Patrol. And meet me out there at noon. I met him out there at noon, and we flew clear across the country in his Gulfstream 2, pick up John McEuen in Arizona, and then flew back to New Mexico to do this big song with Buffy St. Marie and all these amazing, the Gathering of Nations. And there we are on stage, and he had his jet fly over, just swoop down into the valley and up, and all the people just went crazy. And they picked us up at the airport again, John and everybody, dropped them off. We were back in the swamps, landing in the dark, practically, looking out for gators at midnight. But yeah, I've done a lot of jobs with John. He's been in my studio. I adore him. I've always adored his. He had so much influence on the music I play. He introduced me to Doc Watson and all the old time people.
You're known as a violin player, but you also sing and play guitar.
Yes.
Violin is your primary instrument, is that right?
Yes, it is. Florida Fiddler. I play. I've got a few guitars back here. I've got a beautiful collection of classicals and steel strings and Martins and Gibsons and everything. I use them mainly in recording my film. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to work on another project now. Done things for the Great Cattle Drive, Florida Cattle Drive, and things like that. This one takes place up in North Carolina. So that's, once again, why I had to learn banjo. It's the Prohibition years, the whiskey making stuff.
So again, as a fiddle player, you generally would be accompanying someone else. So for the past year, has that made you lean into the guitar as well as the banjo and
Sure.
just like exploring more of that singer-songwriter side of yourself?
And dobros and writing songs, yes, sir. I'm at a very fortunate time in my life where I've done all the gigs, and I can just retire to the studio and have fun and still do personal concerts. I love it. I'm doing a wedding coming up next week down in the Keys, which is a blast. But I'm going to hang around there with some musicians like C.W. Colt, and he has a little project he wanted me to help him on. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the time out.
I've been really blown away by how musicians around the world have really adjusted, in some ways, improved their lives because of the changes that this year forced on them.
It's a big revolution, and you're part of it by providing living room concerts, and not just after the COVID, and we can actually gather in rooms, but there are going to be a lot of people who are accessible. It's a revolution. It's really exciting what the silver lining of the COVID has done with us.
Nice. And so you're part of a great organization called the Americana Community Music Association. Tell me a little bit about how you connected with them and how long ago that was.
As a matter of fact, I met Alice at a John McEuen concert along with the Reckless Saints. I was impressed.
How long ago was this? Which space were they in when you...
3 or 4 years ago. And the ACMA is such a wonderful outfit because they allow everybody a chance to play. They support each other so much. It's
nice.
Just beautiful.
Community organizations like that are so vital to the development of a music scene. If somebody was inspired to do something like the Americana Community Music Association in some other place, what would you recommend they start with? Should they start with concerts? Should they start with workshops, or any of the other things that ACMA sponsors? If you are enjoying this podcast, can you pause for a moment to like, review, and subscribe? Please help the world discover our music community and the wonderful artists we support. Your feedback makes a difference.
I started a thing before I was, about the same time I met the ACMA people, and it's called Florida Songwriter Showcase. Mm-hmm. And the Florida Songwriter Showcase, I would gather 2 or 3 different writers around the state. And we had the Marco Island theaters available. They gave us Sundays. And we packed it. We packed it full of people who were interested. What the heck's going on? And they get in there, and you could hear a pin drop because I would ask the people to tell a story about their next song. And so, of course, they're interested there. And then they got to listen to the song carefully to hear what was being imparted. And so my answer is just jump into it. I think find a place, find a good PA system. John McEuen actually recommended that I go around the state and gather up some people, and that would be a lot of fun, but it is a lot of work. And that's one thing I have to admire about the ACMA. Those people work together. everybody's in on it to help each other. That's what I would do. I think just gather some friends together and maybe even start at somebody's house, like Alice's house. She does it. I would, when things are rolling here, I will not only go back and do a 1 or 2 times a month show, but I want to have a big house concert right here in my own house. It'll be so much fun.
Nice. So yeah, one of the things that I think came up in our little pre-interview is the idea of a house party versus a house concert. And I always love this topic because we've all been to places where the music winds up being more of a background thing. And so one of the things that I run into once in a while is somebody will join the website as a host and in their when we talk, they'll say something like, it's my husband's 50th birthday party and we want to have a music event for it. And I always have to dig a little bit there because we're the listening room network. We're all about creating a listening room environment. And that's not often the best place to have a party. And, when you have a birthday party, a lot of people that are coming are just there to see the birthday boy. And, if there's music, that's great, but they're not there to pay attention to that. They want to hear stories. They want to, have some cocktails, and they want to, kick back and celebrate, their friend. And so for us, like that, it's an important distinction that a lot of people, until you've been to a house concert, it's not something that is easy to explain, but it is like similar to like the movie theater etiquette, right? Like when you go to a movie, it's not appropriate to go have a conversation over in the corner while the movie's happening. And it's the same thing as just like you going to the orchestra or whatever. So and that value of having everybody in the room paying attention to the same thing.
You're so true. You've said it so well, because I could call myself the king of house parties because I've been doing it for so many years. I've played where everybody's barefoot and barefoot weddings and stuff. Last week I was on a gig in Port Royal, $65 million mansions. I was invited in and nobody heard me. I was like a decoration on the wall. Whereas when we do private parties, it's so wonderful. It's like a movie, and you said it. My friends down in Chokoloskee, they come down every year in their mobile homes and everything. I think it's the outdoor resorts people. They are lovely because when they want to have a party, they dance and they bring their music. However, this year they called me up and said, J.Robert, I'm sorry, but we can't get together this year. So we're going to have to cancel the contract. And I said, so what you going to do instead? And she says, oh, we're going to show some movies. And I said, oh, really? Don't you have to pay, royalties on it? She says, yeah, about $500 or $600. I said, tell you what I'm going to do. I will play you some of the films I've worked on. Plus, you'll get a fiddler to do some sing-alongs. And they loved it. And here's the deal. We sat out on the tennis courts. I carry my own projector and screen. And they were silent. It was a real concert. I love your house concerts. I've attended several of them where everybody's silent again. It's a real gift to be that close to the music and the musicians. And you can ask stories at the end, hopefully at the end, let them do their show. And that gets them started into more stories. So
yeah. Well, J.Robert, it's great to reconnect with you, and good luck with all the great stuff that's going on with the ACMA. And I hope to see you next time I'm down in that area.
Great. And you're always welcome. As a matter of fact, you should come to some of the ACMA shows. They are a blast, and I'm sure they would love to see you there.
All right. Sounds great, J.Robert. Have a great day. We'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye. Best wishes.
Thanks for listening to the Fran Snyder Podcast. Please subscribe, like, or share to help your friends discover this community. Also, I'd love to hear from you with any feedback or suggestions you have. And if you'd like to learn more about house concerts and listening rooms around the world, please visit and join listeningroomnetwork.com. You can email me from there. See you next time on the Fran Snyder Podcast.